Hey guys, it's Matt and welcome to another video, and this is going to be something a little bit different from what I normally do. What I've been doing normally on my channel at this point is Let's Plays with some devlogs mixed in between, and I want to do more game dev content outside of devlogs, like experiments, stuff like that. Just recording when I have an idea and start trying it out and stuff so you guys can see that, you know, everyone goes through that phase where they're just like bricking around and finding out. That's a good way to put it. But here, I wanted to do a bit of a tutorial for once. I'm not really good at that because I don't feel like I explain things very well, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to give it my best attempt. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I was making that video I posted, like last week, about testing or trying out this idea for a new thumbnail aesthetic, the watercolor aesthetic that I'm going to be doing for my next Let's Play after I finish Amnesia the Bunker. And when I was watching that video back, I got the idea to kind of do this tutorial on how I do the oil painting thumbnails that I do for my Amnesia videos. Like the ones for the Amnesia custom story, the Great Eagle, and the ones for Amnesia the Bunker, obviously. I just wanted to kind of show you guys my process for doing that, because at this point, I have a process down that I think tends to make it work pretty well. So what I'm going to be doing is, firstly, when you want to do this, the first thing you want to do is create a new project, obviously. And since we're making a thumbnail for a YouTube video, set the width to 1280 and the height to 720 pixels. Like, obviously, like, that's what YouTube themselves recommend, is 720p for thumbnail images. I tend to fill it with transparency because that creates an alpha channel automatically, which is very helpful for a lot of situations where you need to overlay something onto the thumbnail. I don't put text or stuff into a lot of my thumbnails, especially for my Let's Plays, but some people might want to, so that's just more convenient for that. Comment created with GIMP is fine. Also, I'm using GIMP, by the way, for this. I probably should mention. But I'm pretty sure you could probably do the same thing with a lot of other image manipulation softwares. So we create that project, and what we have right now is just an empty project, and that's what we want to start with. What I tend to like to do is, the moment I create a project, I like to save it, and I save it in, you can save it wherever you want. I'm going to save it in projects, GIMP, and I'm just going to say thumbnail tutorial thumbnail, because I'm going to be using this thumbnail that I'm making right now as a thumbnail for this tutorial video, probably, because it's just fitting, And for the sake of this, I'm going to use a screenshot I took in Ultimate Fishing Simulator, apparently on February 2nd of this year. But you can use whatever image you like. What I do for my thumbnails is I use a screenshot of the video I recorded, like at a frame that I feel like would make a good thumbnail. So, yeah, that's how I do the thumbnails for my Amnesia the Bunker. It's how I've been doing the thumbnails for my Amnesia the Bunker videos. And you want to take that image that you select and you want to just paste it into here, for starters. And then you're going to save your project, because always save, no matter how small the change is, always hit Control S after you do something. I mean, that's a personal philosophy of mine at the very least. But I think it's just helpful advice, because you can always just undo it with a Control Z anyway. It doesn't even make a difference. You want to make sure that whatever the focus point of your thumbnail, or whatever you want the focus point of your thumbnail to be, like whatever the central object or the central idea behind your thumbnail is, like whatever you want the viewer to focus on when they look at your thumbnail should always be in the center, and you should scale that up as much as you can without cutting out any background elements. There are no background elements to this, so I'm not going to worry about that. Because really, I'm just going to focus on this trophy that I took and leave the wooden panel in the background. That should be pretty good scale-wise. And since I pasted in a thumbnail, or since I pasted in a screenshot that's a lot larger than the image that I'm trying to create, I'm going to go ahead and I just said that twice, scale layer to image size, which will basically cut out everything that's outside of the canvas. And then I'm going to, and I should really be explaining how I'm doing this. I went to layer, scale to image size, layer to image size right here. You can see, like, you can just look at the video. I'm not gonna bother. I expect you to have a brain. And something else I tend to do for my thumbnails is I tend to make the backgrounds blue and the foreground red, or the background cool colors and the foreground like warm colors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna select using the lasso select tool up here, or free select tool. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna, with great patience, select the entire like shape of the focal point of the thumbnail. And if you want to look at a thumbnail where it's particular on my channel, I mean, where what I'm talking about making the central element warm in color and everything in the background cool, you can look at my thumbnail for, I think it's Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs Part 3. Mandus Saboteur is the title of the video. Because I think that's probably the most noticeable place where I've applied that I guess, trope is in that thumbnail. And yes, what I'm saying probably isn't going to make a whole lot of sense if it's not related to what I'm doing, because I'm kind of distracted by what I'm doing right now. And yes, I know this is very tedious to do, and it takes quite a long time sometimes, so just be patient. You don't necessarily need to do this. This is just something I like to do for the sake of, like, my style. Like, really, you can just do what comes naturally to you, honestly. It really shouldn't matter, if you ask me. Like, there's this whole meta on YouTube these days that you need to have everything professional and everything just... You need to, like, do things, quote-unquote, the right way. And I don't think that's healthy to have. And I've now completely selected the entire trophy of this fish, which is what's going to be the focal point, I should say, of this thumbnail that I am making right now is going to be this. And what I'm going to do is, since we're going to be manipulating the background rather than the foregrounds, because the foreground's already in red tones, I'm going to go, hang on, select, invert selection, wherever that is, invert. Which I guess you can also hit Control-I. I'm actually going to try that. I don't really use the shortcuts that much. Control-I inverts the selection, so now everything outside of what we just selected is selected. And then if you want to make this into cool colors, you go, I'm going to Control-S, you go color, color temperature, and you can leave the original temperature as is, but you can manipulate the intended temperature slider here. And sliding it to the right makes the colors warmer, and sliding it to the left makes them cooler. I'm going to slide it a bit to the left to make the background cool colors. And since this is a stylized aesthetic, I'm going to go pretty far, honestly. And there we go. I might also, for the sake of stylization, once again, increase the contrast on this and the brightness to make it so it doesn't look stupid. There we are. And so you can see, now we have our fish thing in warm colors, and the background is largely cool colors. And I think the reason I do this is mostly because it creates a really nice, I guess, style whenever you apply the oil painting filter to this. And that's what we're going to be doing in a moment here. But before I do that, I'm going to also add a vignette. And you do this by going Filters, Light and Shadow, Vignette. And it pops up this little sub window here where you can manipulate whatever you want to. What I'm going to do for the sake of this thumbnail is I'm going to set the color to something that isn't normal for a vignette, such as like blue. I'm just going to play around. That's what I always do. I play around. I quite like that, actually. I mean, I think people who watch my channel know what I like, the fact I like this color a lot, the color teal. I don't think I need to say this. I'm going to increase the radius. No, I'm going to lower the radius. I'm actually going to leave the radius at 1 and increase the gamma, so the fish, that does not look as good as I wanted it to. Increase the radius, increase the softness, lower the gamma a bit, increase the radius a bit. I'm literally just messing around at this point, so bear with me. I don't know why I'm trying to make this into a tutorial. I'm not very good at making tutorials. I quite like how that looks, actually. And it's gonna look a little bit strange right now, but once we hit this filter for once we hit the filter for the oil painting, or like the oilify filter is what it's called, once we do that, it's gonna look pretty cool. And the way you apply this oil painting filter I'm talking about is you go to Filters, Artistic, Oilify, and you can see it brings it up here. I tend to do nothing with either of these settings, and I set the mask radius to 8 for my thumbnails. And you can see here it creates this nice little oil painting type of look to this image. It makes it all blotchy and look like it was just painted onto a canvas, you know what I mean? So, with that, something else I also like to do to preserve authenticity of this whole style is I also like to go artistic, apply canvas, and set the depth to 1. And that makes it also appear like there is a canvas underneath all of this. But before I do that, I'm gonna... Hang on, I just unselected it. Hang on. I'm gonna go and add another vignette. And this one's gonna be a square shape, and it's just gonna be black. And I'm gonna increase the gamma, lower the radius. This is another optional step. This is just something I like to do for the sake of, you know, my thumbnails. You can see this in a lot of my Amnesia the Bunker ones especially. Because I like to create that little edge there, because whenever a painting is in a frame, you have that little shadow, like that occlusion between the frame and the picture itself. So I do this solely to create that sort of look. And then I usually apply the canvas to this, and I just set the depth to 1. And you can see here, when we zoom in, you can see the grooves of the canvas in the image, but it's not obvious enough. It is not obvious enough that it really takes away from the overall color scheme. So it looks like this whole picture has been painted over a canvas using oil paint. And honestly, I don't know why I've been doing this. I quite like this look. I think I came up with it, like, just while messing around when I was doing my Amnesia the Dark Descent Let's Play. And if you look at those thumbnails, you can kind of see me slowly figuring this out as I try and do this. So, or as I progress through that series, I should say, not as I try and do this. I don't know what I'm saying sometimes. I don't pay attention to what comes out of my mouth sometimes. I just should probably mention. But yeah, I hope this made any bit of sense and was somewhat followable for someone who was maybe a beginner at this software. But like I said, I'm not the best at explaining things, so that's why I don't normally do videos where I try and explain stuff. So hopefully you were able to learn something from this, but honestly, I really just wanted to show my process here regardless, because I think it looks I think this actually looked really nice. Like, I think it came out nice because the glare from the bloom effect in the game was shining off of this fish. It kind of created this interesting little, like, aura around it once I did the oilify filter, and I think that is really cool. I quite like that, honestly. I might start, because I know you can do like a bloom filter in this as well, can't you? Like filters, light and shadow, can't you? Lens flare, supernova, gradient. What does this do? Oh, I could definitely do something with this. I'm discovering things now. I could definitely do something with that. That just gave me some ideas for stuff I could try in the future. But I saved this, and then, of course, once you're finished, you need this to just be an image, so you can set it to the thumbnail. So you want to go export. I tend to do export as, because I want to change the export directory to a different folder. And I'm going to put this in thumbnails, because that's where I put all my thumbnails. And there we go. Now, if we go to that folder, right here, you can see our image, wherever it went, is now there. I can bring this up in my just default image viewing software, which I think might even be GIMP. I'm not sure. I think I'm actually just using like the Windows default Photos software as my default image viewer. Yeah, I am. Here we go. And there's our image that we've just created in GIMP. So, like I said, hopefully you were able to learn something from this. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video I post, which there will be a link in the description to once it's up, and a card in the upper right corner of the video right now. Talking about. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!